Have you ever found yourself praying lying down and then felt guilty about it? This question may seem simple, even funny, but it carries a deep spiritual dilemma. Many sincere Christians have asked themselves, will God hear my prayer if I am not kneeling? There is a feeling that, by not adopting a posture considered correct, we are disrespecting God, as if He were more concerned with the position of our body than with the intention of our heart. But is this really what the Scriptures teach us? Over the centuries, various Christian traditions have attributed great value to certain postures during prayer. Knees bent, hands joined, head bowed. These gestures, without a doubt, have their symbolic importance. They represent reverence, surrender, and humility. Jesus himself, before being arrested, prayed on his knees in the Garden of Gethsemane, as reported in Luke 22 verse 41. Several kings and prophets also prostrated themselves before God. But care must be taken to ensure that these gestures, which are so significant, do not become rigid demands, as if they were the only valid way to pray. Prayer is, above all, a living and intimate relationship with God. And the Bible offers several examples that challenge the idea of a single correct posture for speaking to the Creator. One such example is found in Psalm 63 verse 6. When I lie down, I remember you. In the watches of the night I meditate on you. These words come from David, a man in search of God's presence. He was in the desert of Judah, perhaps fleeing from danger or going through yet another difficult time in his life. Even in the midst of uncertainty, discomfort, and fear, he transforms the silence of the early morning into a time of communion with God. Notice, he is not kneeling, neither in the temple nor surrounded by other believers. He is lying down, probably in a cave, physically exhausted, but with his heart turned to the Lord. He prays in the darkness, in the silence of the night, in his rest, and God hears him. This same idea appears in other passages of Scripture. In Psalm 4 verse 4, David advises, "Meditate in your hearts upon your bed, and be silent." In Daniel 6 verse 10, the prophet is shown praying on his knees, but the central point there is his unwavering faithfulness, not his physical position. In 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 17, Paul invites us to pray without ceasing, which is only possible if we understand that prayer goes beyond any external formality, and can happen while we walk, work, rest, or even lie down. What matters, in the end, is the sincerity of the soul before God. He cares more about the direction of our heart than the position of our body. In Psalm 63, David shows that he sought God from dawn until the watches of the night. This reveals a faith that is not limited to fixed times or sacred places. God was present right there, in the desert, in isolation, in vulnerability. Praying while lying down in this context is not spiritual laziness, as some may think, but it can be precisely the sign of a soul that desires divine presence even when tired, even when the body does not respond as it would like. In these moments, there is no appearance, no pretense, just a person and their God. C.S. Lewis, when dealing with prayer, stands out for his sincerity and depth. He was not a traditional theologian, but a Christian committed to the truth and to his spiritual journey. In his letters and books, Lewis did not try to create a theory about prayer, but shared real experiences before God. In the book Letters to Malcolm, he writes very personally about the subject. In one of the letters, he admits that sometimes he prayed lying in bed and felt guilty about it. But he also confesses that, on other occasions, even when he was kneeling, he realized that his mind was distant, lost, far from God. This confession reveals something very valuable. Authenticity is more important than formality. C.S. Lewis did not despise reverence. On the contrary, he recognized the value of kneeling, raising one's hands, or following liturgical gestures, as long as they were sincere expressions of faith and not just empty repetitions. He understood that, at certain times, the body can help us pray, but he also knew that there are times when the body is weak and, even so, the soul desires to converse with God. It is precisely at this point that his reflection connects with what we see in David in Psalm 63. For Lewis, prayer was to get in touch with the real, with a God who is alive, personal, holy, but also close. This way of seeing prayer breaks with the idea that it is a mechanical act or a religious formality. God, for him, is not a judge attentive to rituals and postures, but a loving Father who values genuine closeness, even if it comes in the silence of the night, in the tired whisper of someone already in bed, or in the midst of the confusion of thoughts of someone trying to pray before sleeping. Lewis makes a very powerful analogy when he says that many times we treat prayer as a presentation before a human king, where every gesture needs to be perfect. But God is not a distant monarch. He is a father, and he listens even to the disorganized thoughts of his children. In another part of Letters to Malcolm, he states, "Prayer does not change God, it changes us. And if we are not sincere, then we are not being transformed by it." This applies perfectly to the question of prayer said lying down. It does not lose value if that is where you can be honest before God. What matters is the truth of the heart. One sincere prayer said lying down can be worth more than 1,000 prayers said on your knees, but empty and distracted. Lewis also recognized our physical limitations. He knew that the body gets sick, tired, and old. But that doesn't stop the spirit from seeking God. He went through this himself. During his wife Joy's illness, he spent many nights praying in bed, and it was in these moments of weakness that he learned to trust more deeply in God's love, even in the midst of suffering. Another important point he addresses is the risk of spiritual pride disguised as reverence. Sometimes we insist on certain postures, kneeling, speaking loudly, using fancy words, not out of love for God, but because we think we're doing everything right. This gives us a false sense of merit. Lewis warns against this attitude. God doesn't want us to make a show before him, but to be truthful. Praying while lying down can indeed be an act of humility, when we recognize that we are weak, but still desire God's presence. It can be the most sincere form of prayer we have to offer at that moment. In short, C.S. Lewis valued reverence, but placed sincerity above form. He recognized that praying lying down was perfectly valid, especially when it was the fruit of an authentic heart. God does not demand posture labels, but desires an honest heart before him. Prayer does not transform God, it transforms us. That is why authenticity is essential. After seeing that the Bible does not condemn prayer done lying down, as we saw in Psalm 63, and that Lewis saw this type of prayer as a legitimate space for sincerity before God, an important question remains: what does this change in our lives? Perhaps more than we imagine. Many Christians carry, without realizing it, the burden of the ideal prayer. They think that they can only truly pray if they are in the right place, with the right music, the right light, in the right position, as if God were inaccessible, and would only manifest himself if we got the right password right. This mentality, which seems pious, is actually paralyzing. It causes many to stop praying because they feel they are not in the right state. This robs us of the naturalness of our relationship with God. But the truth is simple and liberating. God is accessible now, here, anywhere, and in any position, including lying down. As Jesus told the Samaritan woman, true worshippers worship the Father in spirit and in truth. John 4 verse 23. The spirit is not bound by posture, and the truth of the heart is more valuable than any ritual. When we return to Psalm 63 verse 6, when I lie down, I remember you. In the night watches I meditate on you. We find a profound portrait of what it means to seek God even in your rest. How many times have you woken up in the middle of the night with a restless mind, or gone to bed with an anxious heart, and yet tried to pray a short, simple prayer before going to sleep? Maybe you didn't even manage to finish your prayer before falling asleep, but God heard it all, and saw the sincerity of your heart. The bed, in this sense, can become an altar, not a high placer of ceremonies, but a space of true surrender, where the soul opens itself with simplicity before God. The great theologian Thomas Watson said, "Prayer is the breath of the soul, and breath is not measured by gestures, but by life." If your soul sighs for God before going to sleep, in the silence of your room, even while lying down, that is a true prayer. There are times when weakness turns into prayer. Many people, because of age, illness, or physical limitations, can no longer kneel. Some can barely speak. Others spend years bedridden. And does God listen to these people less? Of course not. The Bible is full of examples of men and women who, despite their limitations, prayed powerfully. Hannah prayed almost without making a sound, and God heard her. That's in 1 Samuel 1 verse 13. Jonah prayed from the belly of a fish. Paul in prison. John in exile. David in the desert. And you right now, lying in your room, perhaps with tears in your eyes, perhaps so tired that all you can say is, God, I am here. This puts you in the same spiritual place as these giants of faith, because God sees the heart. He knows its limitations, and He draws near to the broken, transforming simple moments into sacred ones. C.S. Lewis also reminds us of this when he shows us that prayer is not just a ritual act, but something that can happen at any time, in any way. All of life can be prayer. He said that sometimes the best prayers are the ones we can't even formulate. And that praying lying down can be the most honest way to seek God, because there, in that moment, we are not trying to appear strong, we are not trying to impress anyone. We just want God. So, transform these simple moments before going to sleep, when waking up, during a sleepless night, into sincere encounters with the Father. Don't wait for a perfect setting to pray. Pray with what you have where you are as you are. If you want a simple devotional practice, try this. Before going to sleep, lie down, turn off the lights, take a deep breath. Remember, God is present. Start talking to Him as you would to a loving Father. Don't try to choose the right words. Just say what's on your heart. And if, in the middle of prayer, you fall asleep, don't blame yourself. You fell asleep in the arms of the Father. This practice can transform your spirituality, making it more alive, real, present. Not forced, not technical, but natural. True prayer is born of dependence. Its value is not in the form, but in the surrender. Praying lying down can be the purest symbol of trust. An unarmed, unpretentious prayer that simply says, Father, I am here. Even tired, I am still yours. And God always answers. So don't blame yourself for praying lying down. God hears those who pray in spirit and in truth, not those who achieve a holy position. David prayed lying down. Lewis prayed lying down. Millions of sincere Christians do the same, and God is pleased with that. May your bed become an altar, too. May the night vigils be your moments of intimacy with the Father. If this message spoke to your heart, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here we seek a living, sincere, and everyday faith, without masks, without formulas, only the truth before God.